last night right here on FS1. Kyle Busch wins the
Pretty
pole.
good.
183.925 miles per hour. And
you won't round up for him? Let's call it 184.
You know what, Kyle? I will call it 184. Everyone was happy for you, Kyle. You posted this on your social media. Your son was fired up. So that's great.
Awesome.
The dog is also happy. And then this morning, you hit a little dance to 50 Cent's Disco Inferno, which we couldn't hear. But at home, if you want to play Disco Inferno, it really adds to the drama. So congratulations on the pole. Feels like everybody's rooting for you. Tell us, we'll start with the pole. How does it feel to be the pole setter at Daytona 500?
Well, at least I qualified on the pole and I wasn't dancing on the pole.
Right.
So, all right, fair terms.
That was good.
But yeah, no, it's awesome, you know, because I've been coming down here for 21 years. I've never qualified on the pole for the Daytona 500. And when you come down here as a young guy, you're like, I got to qualify on the pole. I need that recognition. I need everybody to know my name and know who I am. And then when it doesn't happen, you kind of forget that that's even a thing, you know? So, but trust me, now I'm 40. People have told me plenty today that, hey, you're 40 and you're on the pole for the Daytona 500. I'm like, yeah, I got to show all these guys how to do this. Let's go, you know? So great race car last night. Everybody from RCR did a fantastic job building the speed in that zone Chevrolet to get us up front.
KW said everybody's rooting for you, and I think that is a fair sentiment. It is also... maybe, I don't know if Kyle Busch 15 years ago would have believed, hey, everybody's rooting for you.
Yeah,
like,
no.
It wasn't really kind of your
rooting against
persona.
me 15
right,
years ago.
Exactly. So how different is that for you, going from, in wrestling parlance, I guess, from like heel to face, which it seems like has happened, you know, in a really cool way for you?
It has, you know, and it's kind of weird how it all transitioned. You know, I was with the M&M's team and Toyota and all those guys for a long, long time, at being Joe Gibbs Racing, and then when I joined over to Team Chevy with Richard Childress Racing, like, it was a little bit of a flip, you know, of fans like cheering for me again. And I'm like, this is kind of weird. Like, what happened, you know? But it feels great. You know, I love having Rowdy Nation and the fans on my side. And you're right, when you come down here, you hear a lot more like, man, this is your year. We're pulling for you. We want you to get this done, you know? So I wouldn't say that adds any added pressure to me to be able to go out there and do it. I've been running this race now for 20, 21 years. And so to me, you got to treat it. You got to treat it like those dogs where it's just another day.
Obviously, it's great to be on the pole. But we were talking earlier, and like, you know, the pole position winner hasn't won in like 25 years or so.
Right, you're right.
So how are you viewing that, you know, advantage, disadvantage? What makes it so tough to win from the pole here?
So years ago, back in the 80s, 90s, you know, teams would come down here. There was probably 5, 6, 8 drivers that could win the race. And then there was probably 6 or 8 teams that could win the race. And whoever was matched up, those were your favorites, right? Well, now when you come down here with the new next-gen race car that NASCAR has, everybody, they're all the same parts. They're all the same pieces. And so everybody, I feel like, has a chance to win this race. You'll drop the green flag, and there's going to be 30, 35 guys that you're looking and be like, I don't know who the favorite is. Any one of these guys could win this race. And so it a lot of times comes down to luck at the end of the show, where in the last 3 laps or last 5 laps, there's some chaos happening. Guys are pushing on each other. They're getting aggressive. They want to win the race, and accidents happen, right?
Yep.
And you got to make your way through that crash. And, you know, last year, I think William Byron came off of turn 2 on the final lap. He was in 10th place.
Yep.
And they all crashed in front of him, and he made it through, and he won the race. I mean, it just, you never know where you need to be. You just got to be that guy in the right place at the right time.
You've led 342 laps of this race. I mean, obviously, if you're leading, like, the flag drops and you go, I think it'd be weird to be like, I'm going to win right now. I'm in first place. But when in your mind are you thinking, like, all right, I'm actually going to make a run to win this? How late in the race do you start thinking strategically about winning in a real way? I know you always are thinking about it.
You are. I mean, the strategy starts from lap 1. You know, there's going to be a lot of fuel saved. We talk about that a lot, where if you can save more fuel through a run, when you come to pit road, you have to put less fuel in the car so you can jump the guys that burned more fuel on that run prior to that, right? So when you come to the end of the race and the final stage of the race, if you're saving enough fuel and you've got really good mileage, that then you can put less fuel in your tank on that final pit stop, that leapfrogs you to the front. That's when you start realizing and recognizing where I'm at, having the track position, having the know-with-all to be able to go out there and put yourself up front to have a shot to win.
Can I ask you, sorry, Nick, real quick.
Go.
When you're getting close to the finish line, the pie chart of your brain, what percentage is don't let someone wreck me? I'm looking around. I do not want to have someone else end my race. And how much it is, I don't care. I'm doing like offense versus defense.
I think it kind of depends on where you're running. Like if you're leading the race, you're just solely focused on looking in the rearview mirror, looking behind you, trying to control the lanes, trying to keep because the energy in our race comes from behind. So when the guys behind come up to the car in front, it pushes that car out front. That's the draft. That's pushing the draft through and making the whole line of cars go faster. And so if you're back in traffic a little bit, like you're, say, in the middle lane, if there's 3 lanes and you're in the middle and you're 3 rows deep, you're looking all around you. Who's around me? Which guy's going to make the mistake? Where's the crash going to come from? And so a lot of times, those things are all going through your mind.
So tonight's the duels.
Correct. The qualifying races.
Right. Yeah. But you and Chase know where you're starting.
We do.
So apologies if this is a foolish question. What does tonight matter other than, the downside risk of somebody screws up and now you're on a backup car? Like, have you thought about today, man, I'm going to just be a lap down and chill? How do you approach tonight when you know you're sitting the pole no matter what?
Correct. So that's a great point. So a lot of drivers or teams that do win the pole or win the front row locked in positions, they will sort of concede the qualifying races tonight. I feel like one thing that you should do, though, is you need to get in the mix a little bit. You need to kind of feel your car out in the draft, and whether you're leading the draft or whether you get behind a little bit, say 5th place or so, and you can feel what your car drives like in the draft, because when you come to 500 miles on Sunday, you don't want to be driving something that's all over the place. It is too difficult to drive, So there are handling characteristics that will take place on Sunday in 500 miles. So that's the added benefit. The other added benefit, too, though, is in the qualifying races tonight, it is technically sort of a stage in our racing. So in our racing, we have stages.
You get points.
And you get awarded points in those finishing positions. So 1 through 10 tonight will take home some points for the season-long point total. So we know how important those 1s or 2s or 3s of points can be when it comes down to the end of the season. You want to get some of those tonight.
Now, you Kyle, you've won 2 Cup Series titles. What is kind of bigger or more important, winning the Cup Series title or the Daytona 500, the Super Bowl as we've been calling it?
Depends on who you talk to. The guys that have won the championships and no Daytona 500 would say the championships are more important. The guys that have won the Daytona 500 and no championships would say the Daytona 500 is more important. So, but no, frankly, for me, I would say the championship is more important. That is your season long. That is you winning the Super Bowl. That is you taking home the Lombardi Trophy. And so, this race to me is sort of like the AFC championship game, NFC championship game, right? So that's kind of how I look at it compared to the championship.
Nick, you're the poker player on the show. But I am also great at reading people. Maybe
okay.
I am.
I don't
I'm
know.
very good at
Brew
it.
tricks you on the misdirection every time.
That's very
I think Kyle wants to win tonight.
What wants to win tonight?
Yeah, I think so.
And
that's
to-
why.
and Sunday.
I just feel like it.
Trust me, if you told me that finishing last tonight would guarantee me
I
a
know,
win
but
on
I just,
Sunday,
I just feel like you want to. I feel like, you know what? Why don't I do this? Why don't I do this? Why don't I win? The 3 times I'm out here, 1, 2, 3, win them all.
let's go. Hey, I'm that guy. Trust me.
told you.
I'm always that guy. Yeah.
I told you that.
All right, so this is, you're obviously if you never race again, you walk into the Hall of Fame. You're one of the greatest racers of this era or any era. And a lot of, the all-time greats don't check every single box in their sports history.
Okay.
So no one would say your career was anything other than amazing, even if you never win the Daytona. But that said, it's the only thing you haven't done.
Right.
Do your career accomplishments being in stone make it more freeing to run this race, or has it somehow, how great of a career you've had, made it more pressurized going into this race?
You know, I feel for me that I can go into the Hall of Fame and be vindicated and validated by the rest of my success that I've had along my career. And this isn't a career-defining moment that gets me there, right? However, I'm a guy that loves to win. I'm a guy that loves to check boxes. I feel like I've done everything I could do here that there is to do. If I haven't, tell me what it is, because I want to figure out how to do it, right? And so that's the Daytona 500. That's a box that I have left to check, and I want to be able to win that one.
Well, if I can just real quick, you said yesterday, and you've alluded to it here, the luck component in this race.
Yeah.
It also seems like while maybe that always existed, the last decade, that has been ramped up even more.
1000%, yes.
Where we have had so many, 3 guys won it, and that's the only lap they led. The last lap,
or the only race they've ever won.
Or the only race they've ever won. So as someone who's now run this race, this is your 3rd decade, I guess, running this race, it's your 21st.
Yeah.
What has changed from your first 5 Daytona 500s to your last 5 that has added even more variance to it?
I think the answer to that is the next gen race car.
Gotcha.
You know, so like back in the day, in the 80s and the 90s and even the 2000s, 2010s, teams, organizations were building their own cars. They had the manpower and the wherewithal of like, I want my body to look like this. I want my chassis to look like this, you know? And so they want more downforce or less drag or whatever at these different racetracks, right? Well, now we all have single source suppliers. So it's basically a Lego. Like we get the Lego, we all assemble the Lego. How do we assemble the Lego is how fast we make it go, right? So there are still those very, very tiny little minute details that go into our race cars that make them fast at super speedways or make them fast at short tracks or make them fast anywhere else. And so that's where some of the teams like us, RCR, we shine at the restrictor plate races. We love this stuff. This is where we feel like we've got the best opportunity to win, and it's our sport's biggest race coming here at the Daytona 500.
That was a great analogy because Nick still plays with Legos.
I don't play with Legos. I build Legos.
I don't know how you play with Legos. They break.
You have made a few NFL references. We know you're a big Broncos fan.
Yeah, buddy.
In Bo Nix, do you have your franchise quarterback for the next 10 years?
I believe so. I believe so. You know who else I really, really love at the Broncos right now? Sean Payton.
Oh.
You got to.
I love Sean Payton.
Resurrected the
Absolutely.
franchise.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So love Sean Payton and what he's been able to come over there and what he's been able to do. I feel like if Bo Nix was in the earlier coaching staffs, maybe he isn't quite Bo Nix of what he is today. So I do feel like Bo is very good. He does a great job. He led the team very well this year. They won tons of games, and they were able to be so close to.
You probably feel like they beat the
He didn't know. He did not say that.
If Bo Nix were
Bo Nix
healthy, you guys crushed the Patriots, right?
He did not say that.
Well, let's ask him. Let's ask him.
He's
If Bo Nix
focused
were
on. Can I say
healthy,
something? He is focused on winning the Daytona
But it
500.
ain't even been close. I mean, it was close without him.
okay.
If Bo is in the game, they win against the Patriots.
Go
Yeah,
win
I mean,
away.
everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Right.
And
But
probably
everybody
make a
thinks,
much more
almost
competitive
won with
Super
Jared
Bowl.
Stidham.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jared Stidham was pretty good. I was told he was going to win.
All they needed to do was be ahead before the snow came, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Kyle, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Despite your bad read on Patriots Broncos, we're rooting for you and hope you pull this off.
Yeah, good luck, brother.
Thank you.
I love the Manning era all day long. I'll take them every day over them Patriot Brady's, okay?
Kyle, for the great Kyle Busch. More First Things First. Live from the Daytona 500 next. Welcome back to a very special edition of First Things First, live from the Daytona 500. This has been excellent so far, bro.
It's been outstanding.
It's
Loving
just
it
been
here.
great, and Nick's hair is in a nice little ponytail. It's beautiful.
It's windy.
It's fantastic.
I don't know what you want me to do.
His hair hasn't looked this good since he had highlights.
That's right. Joining us now is Daniel Suarez, 7 top 10 finishes, 2025 Cup Series. He's making his 9th Daytona 500 start, 7th place in 2023. Daniel, thank you for joining us. I want to start right away with something I've been interested in as we try to figure out the best strategy to win. Can you tell me your ideal plan for track position? I read a long quote. Sometimes you want to be in the front. Sometimes you want to be in the middle. You don't really want to be in the back. What's your general strategy on where you want to be?
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. It's a true honor to be here with you guys. But listen, the Daytona 500 is like a marathon, you know, or like a race in a road bike. You know, you don't want to be up front cutting the air for everyone else for 500 miles. So, you know, you have to play the game. You have to play the strategy. What do I mean with that? You know, we're going to be coming to pit road for tires and fuel several times. And whoever puts the less amount of fuel is going to be more efficient and is going to jump everyone over. So the first half of every stint is going to be very important to be fast, but also to save some fuel. So how you do that? Well, if you're up front, you won't be able to do that. If you're in the very back, you won't be able to do that. So the best way to do that is kind of like towards the middle. So it's always a balance between how much fuel you're going to burn and track position to be able to jump some cars out in the second half of the stint.
Daniel, I joked with Wilds earlier because he's Joey Logano fan because they're both from
I'm sorry to
the
hear
same.
that.
They're both from the same part of the U.S. And I said, oh yeah, a lot of, you know, Connecticut, a hotbed of stock car racing. Because a lot of race car drivers are from geographically the same part of the country and same part of the world. You're the first and only, I believe, still person born in Mexico to win in a NASCAR Cup Series, or didn't win a NASCAR race. I'm curious about, you know, where in Monterey, the love of race car driving, how how you fell in love with it, and how the sport is growing in your home country.
Yeah, listen. Before I answer that question, let me just tell you something very funny, because Joey Logano and I were good friends, and he told me something one day that actually it made me realize how fortunate I am. He said, Daniel, imagine that I have a state, a city behind me that support me, doesn't matter what, like yourself. He said, you have an entire country for you.
Yeah.
So I feel very blessed for that. You know, a lot of people in Mexico, you know, watch NASCAR because of myself. And to be able to represent not just Mexico but the entire Latin American community, for me is very personal and it's very special. Being today the only guy that can speak Spanish in the Cup level, it's also very cool. Actually, I just came from doing an interview in Spanish. I'm the only guy that can do that. So it's very special for me to be in this position, yes, and to be able to represent my community in the sport of NASCAR.
That's unbelievable. How did you fall in love with the sport as a kid?
You know, when I was a little kid, I loved racing. I always loved cars as well. You know, my dad has a mechanic shop. So my love for cars started in the mechanic shop. But I remember watching the races on TV, and I used to be super passionate about NASCAR. You know, when I remember having at 13 years old, I had an old Beetle, and I remember putting my favorite number on the taillight in the right rear and also in the right front, just like NASCAR. So to me, I always had this mentality, oh, look, just like NASCAR, oh, the big number on the door, just like NASCAR. So even though that when I was a little kid, I used to see NASCAR something super, super far away, I was always super fascinated with everything around NASCAR, and look at me now.
Yeah.
Here I am. So it's pretty funny how life works sometimes.
Since we're digging into your past, so your father-in-law, Nelson Piquet, 3-time Formula One world champion. When you first met him, was that intimidating because of that, or what was that like?
You know, it was a little bit intimidating for everything that he has done. But the funny part is that 90% of our conversation, believe it or not, it wasn't about racing. It was about cars. Because my background, also as I mentioned about my dad, you know, I grew up working on cars, building engines, transmissions, and things like that. And he did exactly the same thing. And it just happens by coincidence that he was actually on the same kind of cars, which he was in all Beetles and,
wow,
you know, the air-cooled cars in Brazil called Fuscas. Yeah. Because I used to race those cars, and he used to race those cars back in the 60s or 70s. So we were talking about engines, we were talking about the horsepower, the turbo. So, you know, he's a legend. But also back in the day, the drivers had to have some knowledge about mechanics, because the cars, they used to break a lot. Nowadays, we have so much technology, engineering that we drivers, we don't have to be as smart. We just go and that's it. But back then, the driver actually had to be a little bit of a mechanic to understand what was going on with the car.
You switch teams. I'm gonna read your own quote and ask for your reaction. Tell 97 I'm coming for him.
Hey, I hope they told him. No, listen, we were racing a couple weeks ago in Bowman Gray, the Madhouse, the class race, an exhibition race. It's very physical race. You know, everyone got, at least every single driver got one problem with someone else. and you know, that's part of racing, that's part of short track racing. So I got my share as well with the 97, with the 23, and with a couple other guys. But it's part of racing, you know, like the 97, he hit me a couple times, I hit him a couple times, and it's just a little bit of love. But you know what is the beautiful thing, and I was telling my wife this the other day, is that this is the beautiful thing about being a man, that we men, we fight each other, but the next day we're cool, we're drinking a beer, and we're all cool, so we're good.
What we've asked a few people, this is such a unique thing about this sport, having the biggest event be the first event. Obviously, the opposite of major American team sports and most team sports across the country. How much of your limited off season is actually relaxing, recuperating, and how much of it is in the back of your mind knowing, man, once I'm halfway done with my off-season, Daytona 500 is right around the corner?
You know, that's a great point because, you know, in October, November, first week of November, we're finishing our season, right? And I'm super fit, you know, I'm in shape, everything is good. November, actually, because I was changing teams, it was very busy for me, you know, having meetings and all these different things with my new team. But December, I tried to go to December. We went to Mexico, we went to Brazil with her family, and I was eating everything that was in front of me. So what happens is that by the end, right after Christmas, I have to start getting back in my game because, as you mentioned, the biggest race of the year is the second week of February. So I have to start getting back in my game, you know, with my workout, with my food, my diet, everything that we have to do. So it's kind of like, you know, the way I think about it is like, okay, you can have fun for a few weeks, but then it's game time because, you know, February, once you hit January, February comes like this, and you have to be ready.
But you mentioned working out, getting back in shape. You know, 30 years ago, and certainly before that, race car drivers were not known for physical fitness. I know that has changed somewhat over the last generation, but yours, like, how much of, I guess, your relative youth and your physical fitness is an advantage in a race like this?
So the way I look at it is that every single driver is going to start the race the same way, you know, fresh, ready. What happens is that we're going to be racing for 3 hours and a half. Yeah. So we're gonna lose fluids, we're gonna lose some weight, we're gonna get tired mentally, it's gonna get hot. Right now it's actually beautiful weather, but in the middle of the summer it gets very hot. And it's not how you start, but it's how you finish, right? And that's the part that is very important, you know, that's why I train, that's why I eat well, and I do all these different things, because the difference between now and 30, 40 years ago is that 30, 40 years ago, nobody was training, nobody was doing it, so everyone was on the same field. So all it takes is a couple guys to change the game and to be more fit and better than everyone else for you to start to catch up. So right now we're in a world where if you are not fit, if you don't eat well, if you are not mentally sharp, you're gonna be in a disadvantage, not in the start of the race, but at the end of the race when it matters the most.
We talked about you being born in Mexico, but in 2024, you became a U.S. citizen. We're less than 120 days from the World Cup. So who are you rooting for?
Man, that's a tough question. I mean, already my heart, Mexico is in my heart, and it's going to be always in my heart. With that being said, my adult life has been here in the United States. You know, I've been here for 14 years now. Yeah. So I feel like the United States is my home. You know, when I go to Mexico, I feel like I'm going with my people, with my family, but it's not home anymore. You know, home is here. Yeah. So obviously Mexico and the United States are my teams. But then if you ask my wife, I have to root also for Brazil.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have
Brazil. The answer is root for Brazil.
Yeah, right. That's a smart man right there. That's experience right there. So I have to be smart.
This will be your 9th Daytona 500. Outside of changes to the car, What have you learned? Do you stack something every race, put it in your brain? What have you learned from your first race or fifth race to now?
You know, to be able to win in Daytona, you have to be very experienced. You know, there is some of the best in the sport that they have never won this race. It's very difficult because it requires to put yourself in the right position, to have the car fast enough, and a little bit tiny of luck. So you have to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. That's why it's difficult to win this race. And I feel like right now I'm getting to a point in my life and in my career where I'm still very young, I'm very fit, and all these things, but I have the experience now. Now I have this to be able to apply on the racetrack, and that's what it takes to be able to win one of these beautiful trophies.
I have an announcement to make.
What's that?
You're moving up to #1 in my picks and to win it.
There you go.
#1. I'm making a change. A great Daniel Suarez. Dale, thank
you so
Best
much.
of luck on Sunday. We'll be rooting for you.
Thank you.
More First Things First live from the Daytona 500 next. Yep. Daniel, you're going to be #1. Congratulations.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.